Hello and welcome to Instant Transmission, a podcast where we discuss everything Dragon Ball and why I'm all in on Heat Tap NFTs, baby. Let's go. The Z Fighters tried and failed gloriously to defeat the now-released Buu. Babdi appears to be getting everything he wants, and our heroes seem to be getting everything that's pretty much the opposite. Gohan is thought to be dead, Vegeta is known to be very dead, and Goku doesn't have much time before he goes back to being dead. There's no time to explain, just follow me as we whoosh our way into Instant Transmissions Part 2 of the Majin Buu Arc. I'm your host, Dayton, and once again, I'm joined by my co-host, Todd.
Hi.
And tonight, we'll be covering Kai's final chapter, episodes 132 through 140-ish. The episode schemes. I'm not going back into it. Goku and Vegeta's vicious grudge match has come to a shocking finish when Vegeta fooled Goku into lowering his guard, then knocking him unconscious so he could face Buu alone. Vegeta fought well, but was unable to topple the pink tyrant even after giving his own life. Gohan nearly gave his own life as well, but was narrowly saved by the Supreme Kai and Kibito, who took the young Saiyan to the world of the Kais to do some special training. Goku doesn't have much time left on Earth, and so he begins his fusion training with the young Goten and Trunks. And with all of that covered, was there anything you wanted to add before we got things started, Todd?
No, I think that takes us right into our first episode.
Perfect. Well, the first episode is going to be episode 132, A Time of Trials, Lay Hold of Legendary Powers. Man, I love the names of these episodes. But this episode begins with a very melancholy Bulma, Ox King, Krillin, and I guess you could say Chi-Chi, even though she's passed out, and they're all kind of just discussing the horrible situation they're in and kind of mourning the loss of their loved ones.
Yeah, Videl here is pretty adamant that Gohan is not dead, which is, I mean, we kind of know Videl can't sense powers or power levels, and Krillin's like, I can't sense Gohan, so I'm pretty sure he's dead, but there's something that Videl is just holding on to, whether it just be sheer stubbornness or hope or some level of intuition, but it's kind of fun because we as the audience know that she actually is right in this case.
Yeah, and to make things, I guess, even funnier is that everyone kind of looks at Videl like she's crazy. Like it's like, oh well, you know, you're just you're just mourning in a weird way, or you're too attached to Gohan, you can't let him go, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I like that she's correct in this case. It's even, I mean, we already kind of saw, not that our normal humans like Bulma or Videl have any sort of like special powers in that way, but I kind of like that we already got to see Bulma have like just this awful feeling when Vegeta died, and now we've got Videl having this connection with Gohan where she's like, I just have this feeling that he's still out there.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I'm glad this is something that Dragon Ball has done kind of a couple times at this point, where they can just kind of feel the presence of somebody important to them, and when they die or something bad happens, or they just have this bad feeling in their gut, it's I mean, it's fun, and it's kind of a romantic, what's the word I'm looking for? It's something that you see in romantics a lot.
Yeah, that's true. Like, there's just that deeper connection there, and I like that, which is funny because we kind of cut over to Gohan very much alive, but on the world of the Kais, as he's being shown the Sword in the Stone, or the Z Sword in this case, and he is tasked by the Supreme Kai with trying to pull the sword from the stone. Very Arthurian legend here.
Yes, and we see Gohan pop down into his stance, and he's pulling with all of his might, and he nearly knocks himself out trying to pull the sword from the rock, and is thoroughly unsuccessful. Even the palms of his hands are kind of pulsating with pain as he's unable to pull this thing free.
Like, it's comical, right? Like, his face is big and ridiculous with the exertion that he's putting out to try and pull this sword, and he kind of like conks his head backwards as he slips on the sword. I want to talk about this more as we go through this chunk, but I feel like the Buu arc is, because I think Akira Toriyama had a lot more freedom with the Buu arc than he did in some of the previous arcs, like the Cell arc, where there was lots of editor meddling and whatnot. this arc has so much of Akira Toriyama's humor kind of invested back into the story, but it also has some of the darkest moments in all of Dragon Ball, in my opinion. So it's really funny to have such a wide contrast between the humor and the dark elements.
Yeah, we'll definitely touch on some of those notes because there's one or two scenes that really catch me off guard in this chunk of episodes.
Yeah, 100%. But before we move to the darker stuff, Gohan, having failed his first attempt to pull out the Z Sword, goes full on Super Saiyan 2 to give it his all. And in doing so, damn near breaks the ground beneath him and rips the sword out of the stone. And Supreme Kai is, I mean, surprised, but not. Like, he had a lot of faith in Gohan in doing this.
Unlike Kobito, who had zero faith and was talking smack to Gohan this entire time, questioning even why a dirty mortal such as himself was on the planet. So watching Kobito be silenced, hilarious. Just the look on his face.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the Akira Toriyama's goal with Kobito as a character, right? Is that he's supposed to be kind of the foil to the Supreme Kai, but they are... their views on mortals are vastly different.
But from there, we do go back to Goku, who is starting to train fusion to Goten and Trunks. He's explaining the rules that they only get 30 minutes and that the technique must be done perfectly, otherwise it won't work. And there's actually some protest from Goten and Trunks as Goku's trying to teach them. And Goku is accused of being a coward who avoided fighting Buu. And I love this because they have no idea what happened between him and Vegeta.
I deeply love this conversation. I will continue to spout about how much I love the writing for Goten and Trunks in this, because while Goku is Goten's father, this same day, this is the first day that Goku and Goten have met one another. And so while they have heard stories about Goku, up to this point, all they know is that Goku was nowhere to be found while Gohan fought Buu and presumably died, and while Vegeta fought Buu and presumably died. And so they're, in their child brains, they're like, well, where the hell were you? What were you doing?
Yeah, and I want to ask you because I love that Piccolo's actually going to say something. Piccolo's going to speak up and correct them, but Goku stops Piccolo and does not correct this story. I want to hear your take. Why do you think Goku leaves that story on the table?
That's a great question, and I'm glad that you asked about that because I deeply love Goku's response here, because Piccolo's the one that's outraged. Piccolo's like, no, Goku got knocked out. Like, Goku is, he's strong, he's competent, he wouldn't hide or shy away from a fight. He's not scared, because I think the boys at one point accused him of being scared. And Goku, yeah, like you said, Goku stops Piccolo and basically says, you're right. I'm not strong enough to take on Buu. That's why you guys need to do it. I think that the reason Goku kind of says this is because he's humble at this point in some ways, right? Like, we're getting to see Goku the teacher, and he's thinking like, okay, if I let the boys think like, oh, I can't do this myself, neither could Gohan or your father, like none of us could do it, but you boys can. If you guys learn the fusion, you guys can do it yourselves. So I think he's trying to push them in the direction of being like, we are the only ones who can do this, and trying to kind of reinforce that by saying, I'm too weak to beat Buu. I can't help you in this case.
Yeah, and 100% agree. That I think is the primary motivation. But I had something that kind of occurred to me a little later after hearing it, and there might be a secondary element to this.
Yeah.
And it might be so that way Trunks can let Vegeta die being a hero in his eyes without correcting him. Let Vegeta go out on that high note and don't spoil that heroic figure that he views his father as.
I'm really glad you brought that up. And that is a great point because, yeah, I think that I took probably the more obvious intention behind these words, right? Where he's trying to train the boys. But I really like your take on that. I, it's just another feather in Goku's hat, man, for him, like the level of maturity and the way that he's grown to understand people, to understand more than just fighting, and to understand his role in the world, and even in just, if you want to say, in the story in a way. Like, he's like, there are even points where he says, I'm dead technically. Like, I'm not even supposed to be here. Like, you guys are going to have to be the ones who figure this out. So I like the idea that he's also being mindful of the way that Trunks views his father. That's a really great thought.
This scene though is interrupted by the cackling voice of Bobbity, who has a message of him and Boo transforming a whole city into chocolate and eating it. It's not a very good message. But this message is sent. Everyone can see it if they close their eyes. And seeing another city being turned into chocolate and being eaten reinvigorates the young boys. And we see them kind of find a little bit more resolve, and they get back to the training even harder than they were before, because they had some doubts, right? Like they doubt Goku a little bit. They kind of doubt, the situation, because they're Goten's older and stronger brother, couldn't beat Boo, and then Trunks views Vegeta as the strongest person in the universe, couldn't beat him. And so this is some fuel in the tank that they desperately need right now.
Yeah, all of this is fantastic, man. Like, these boys are 7 and 8 years old. This is a lot of weight to put on their shoulders. So it's fun to see the kind of like mental and emotional roller coaster that they are going on as they're trying to process, my brother just died, my father just died, this monster is out there just killing people by the thousands, and we're supposed to take on the mantle of hero and defeat him. It is wild, but like you said, this does fully motivate them, where they're like, okay, let's train. Goku, show us whatever it is this technique is that is going to help us beat Majin Buu.
And Goku goes into training the boys and being the master that we got to see a bit of in the Cell Saga. And I know we both talked about this. We love seeing Goku when he's being a teacher at this point, where he's kind of in the later part of his fighting career. Now he's passing on the skills he's learned to the next generation of fighters. Like, it's awesome seeing that full circle. And we're seeing a lot of it in the Buu arc right now, because he's meeting one of his sons for the first time, and he's coaching him on, and he's seeing Gohan and, I guess, kind of motivating him to get back into fighting form. And now he's teaching Trunks and the next. It's so cool, man. Like, it's such a fun scene, and it's wholesome, even though horrible things are happening. It's wholesome in a way.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with everything you said there. I actually also really like this scene because I like when Dragon Ball shows us training scenes that break down the training.
Yes, that's, oh my gosh. I'm so glad you brought that up, because there's been, especially in Z, there's a lot of training that happens where it's just kind of off scene, or just, I don't know, someone just wills themselves to be stronger or something like that. It's just kind of like cut out, or I guess pushed through. I love this because we're getting to the nitty gritty of this.
Absolutely. And I mean, again, I will say the Buu arc, more merit for the Buu arc here, because we get to see a lot of that type of training in the Buu arc, like we did with Videl about harnessing ki and controlling ki. And this time, it's actually Goku telling the boys to go Super Saiyan and push their power up to the maximum. And when they do, Goku says, okay, for this technique that I'm going to teach you to work, you guys need to match each other's power levels. And he tells Trunks, hey, yours is a little bit higher than Goten's, so you're going to have to bring yours down to match Goten. You even get to see Trunks' aura as it's bigger than Goten's, and then he shrinks it down, and Goku says, that's too far. You brought it too far down. I need you to bring it up a little bit more, and then he gets it just right in the middle. It's so cool. I really like the attention to detail there.
I love it. And when you compare it to, say, I don't know, something like Master Roshi, Goku's teaching style is very different, and you can also tell that he's still kind of working on it, right? Like he's clever and he's doing a decent job teaching, but he's kind of like adapting with the problem in front of him. So it's not like Master Roshi, who you knew had the authority. There's kind of a negotiation with Goku, as he's not only negotiating the training to his students, he's kind of negotiating with himself of like, how do I motivate them? Because I'm new to this. I'm kind of figuring out like, what buttons do I need to press to get you going?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's interesting to see him kind of adapt in that way, because you kind of even see him like thinking here and there. But I also really like, honestly, just how good he is at handling the boys. Like, he does a very good job of...
Check your choice of words there.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't word it that way. Of managing the boys' emotions and expectations. Let's word it that way.
Dun.
But yeah, he's very good at seeing like, okay, they're upset about this. How can I validate their emotions and still get the result that I need from them, which is I need them to do this training so that they can, be motivated and defeat Buu. And he does it very well.
Yeah, I like it. And I know we've spent a lot of time on this, but for me, this is probably some of my favorite content in the chunk of episodes we're going to be covering. So I have no problem spending this little bit of extra time on this. It's worth it. I mean, it's peak Dragon Ball. It's training. It's teacher master or master student relations. I love this stuff.
Yeah, same. I think we do kind of cut from that, though, to getting to see more of Buu just killing people, just destroying cities. We eventually get a cut to, I think, I'm going to say their names wrong. Idasa and Ikosa, I think.
Oh, gosh. You tried. I did not remember their names at all. Oh, God. I just put the salty mom from the World Martial Arts Tournament.
That's the one. But yeah, she basically reaches out to Babidi because she's like, oh, Trunks was the name of that kid who beat up my boy. And so she's like, oh, hey, I know this kid Trunks lives in West City at Capsule Corp. And Babidi then gives out another message saying, hey, Trunks, I know where you live. I'm going to be there at West City. I hope you're there to see me destroy your city.
Yeah, and that's where this episode ends. And by the way, what a great cliffhanger for an episode. So, good cut there. Well done. And I'm just going to go straight in episode 133, which is Hold Majin Buu in Check. Limit Super Saiyan 3. And the Z Fighters at the Lookout discuss a plan to save Bulma's family who are still in West City. They didn't go with them to the Lookout. They're still there. And they decide that doesn't matter. As long as they get the Dragon Balls, everyone can be brought back. And that is such a harsh reality, or a harsh truth that everyone needs to just listen to, because it's true. It doesn't matter if they die. They're going to bring everyone back anyway.
Yeah. And this is it is a harsh truth. It's tragic in a weird way. Like, they are kind of just relying on the fact that they can undo the destruction that Majin Buu is going to cause. And Majin Buu has already killed, again, thousands of people, destroying entire cities. So lots of people are going to get hurt, lots of people are going to suffer, but the important part here is that they need the Dragon Radar, which is back at Capsule Corp in West City. So they got to come up with a plan to get that Dragon Radar and not confront or not get killed by Majin Buu.
Yeah, and so they decide that Trunks is going to hurry to West City as fast as he can, grab the Dragon Radar, get out of there, and that Goku's going to stall Buu and Babidi to try and give Trunks enough time to get his job done. And so Trunks makes his way out, and after a little bit of delay, Goku instant transmissions over to the bad guys.
Oh man, this is a lot of fun. I know some people don't like this part in the show, but I really enjoy it because what we're basically going to get to see is, I'm just going to jump right into it, is Goku, to distract Majin Buu, he's going to show him a new transformation. And the title of this episode kind of reveals it right away as Goku shows Buu first Super Saiyan, then Super Saiyan 2. And then after a long power-up sequence, the new transformation of Super Saiyan 3.
Yeah, and this transformation is probably one of the more visually distinct transformations amongst the 1 through 3 crowd. Whereas 1 was huge when we first saw it. You know, their hair goes golden and it stands at end, and they have that beautiful golden aura around them. Super Saiyan 2 is more or less the same thing, except their hair is, I think, a little bit more spiky or stiffer or something like that. And then they've got the electric sparks that go around their body. That's what I look for. Super Saiyan 3 is kind of wild. Their eyebrows disappear first and foremost, which is weird to me. I have a note in here that it always looks kind of like a caveman to me when they don't have eyebrows. And then their hair stretches to 2 or 3 times its original length. Like, it is a massive pile of hair just sticking out the back of his head. And very notably, Goku actually speaks differently when he's in Super Saiyan 3, right? Like, I'm not mishearing this?
No, 100%. Yeah, Sean Schemmel really gives it his best Batman impersonation as when he's in this form. It's very low, almost like emotionless, kind of cold feeling from my perspective on it. He also, one other little detail too is that for whatever reason, Goku gets pupils in his eyes when he's in Super Saiyan 3.
Oh gosh, I didn't even register that. That is really bizarre. Okay.
I don't know why that's part of it, but yeah, it maybe just a way of making it look a little bit more distinct. But yeah, there are things that I like about it. I like that it's different. I've never liked Super Saiyan 2. Super Saiyan 2 it's so similar to Super Saiyan 1. Like, as much as I love the moment that Gohan gets Super Saiyan 2, the visual aesthetic of it it needs to be more distinct. It's not very much its own transformation, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I haven't seen GT yet, but I've seen the pictures of the weird Super Saiyan forms or whatever the heck are in that. And at least artistically, they're very interesting. Whereas Super Saiyan 2 is artistically not terribly interesting. And Super Saiyan 3 is a little bit more interesting, but you're still just like changing the length of the hair for the most part.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of people like the transformation in GT, is because it is very visually distinct. I kind of like that part about Super Saiyan 3, but I don't like the design necessarily. I don't like the caveman eyebrows. The big hair is kind of like meh. Like, he looks like Goku's got a callback to his brother Raditz in this moment, and I don't know, I'm not a big fan of that. I just like that it's different, at least.
Yeah, and for me, it's the third rank of a thing, right? It's now just another rank of Super Saiyan. So Super Saiyan 1 is now even less important. Super Saiyan 2 is now forgotten about. We had it for all of 5 minutes. And, I'm not a big fan of this just linear scale to how power works, where it's just power level and it's just the next rank of Super Saiyan. I think that's why in Super, it was really cool to see, like, oh shoot, now we're combining the Kaioken with Super Saiyan Blue, and we're doing some mix up over here. Like, there's some interesting and weird things happening. All right, we've got Ultra Instinct. How does that work with Super Saiyan? I don't know. I haven't seen past the anime. I don't know what happens next. if there's one thing I don't give Super a lot of credit for stuff, but they at least did some creative thinking or twisted some ideas in their head that really made me think about how some of this stuff could maybe be layered or used differently. Whereas Super Saiyan 3 just feels like the next step.
I'll say two things I want to add to that because I agree with you and I like your points about it. In the manga, especially in the Dragon Ball Super manga in particular, they go even a step further. I think it's in the Tournament of Power where they use the Super Saiyan God form specifically because it is a faster form, because they have like a slimmer, slender build. But in addition to that, one of the things that I do like about Super Saiyan 3 in the anime is it has a significant downside. So while I don't necessarily like the linear, just straight, this level is better or more strong than the previous level, I do like that there would be some reasons to use Super Saiyan 2 rather than 3, because 3, as we find out in this fight, exhausts the user's energy, especially in the real world.
I do agree with that. It does add some more, I guess, interesting elements to it. I would argue that we already saw that out of the Kaioken, how that drains and exhausts you and pushes your body to the absolute limit. So just having the Super Saiyan variant of that isn't as interesting as just coming up with something different. Basically all it's doing is putting a time limit on this form, which is fine because with original Super Saiyan and the Cell arc, right, they pretty much live in that form. It turns into as natural as breathing at one point. So it does add more of a difference between those two forms, considering the power allotment you need for regular Super Saiyan and now Super Saiyan 3 is pretty drastically different.
Right. And yeah, that's a fair comparison to Kaioken too. But yeah, I'm just glad that they gave us something different, like a downside to using what is at this point the most powerful form that we've seen to date.
Well, let's see this form in action by going over to episode 134. True Worth beginning to show the treacherous Buu. And Trunks arrives at the house and is getting the Dragon Raider. But that's not important because Goku begins laying a smackdown on Buu. And I love this leading technique. It's hilarious. He grabs Buu by the antenna and begins hitting him like a boxer would, where he's bouncing him off his fist. And then he pulls him back with the antenna and punches him again and is just doing that over and over again. I love it.
I mean, again, this isn't even like, I like seeing Majin Buu in fights because of his weird techniques. This is another instance where it's like, this is not a technique of Buu's, but because of his strange anatomy, it makes for interesting choreography, like fight choreography that you would not see in any other fight. So like seeing him like a fucking bouncy ball get bounced around from his antenna. I like stuff like that in this fight. It's really cool.
I mean, I love it. Like if somebody has a tail, they'll use that tail to attack somebody. But at the same time, you'll see times where someone gets their tail grabbed and they're thrown, or their tail gets, certain people's cases cut off. That's inconvenient. I mean, I love if you're going to add like flavor like that to somebody, let them use it and let it be used against them. So I'm a huge fan of this.
Yeah, which that kind of, there's another sequence in here that I really like too because of this, in this similar vein, where Goku is, I mean, it looks like Goku is pummeling Buu, which is, a shock to probably everybody, honestly. But there's a moment where he's just delivering blow after blow after blow, and then he sinks this kick deep into Buu's stomach, and it kind of gets stuck, like his foot gets caught, and then Buu starts swelling around Goku's body, like entrapping him into this sort of balloon mass of his body. And Goku eventually has to use just like a massive ki blast around his body to explode his way out of it. It's a really cool sequence.
Yeah, and it's not the best animated fight. You could tell that this is just kind of filler fighting. But props to the animators and the choreography team, because for being a filler fight, it's actually kind of fun. And we get to see we get to see Buu being Buu, and we get to see Goku just being Goku. There's actually a moment where Goku fires off a Kamehameha wave at Buu, and Buu takes the or I think he takes the wave to the chest, whatever, it doesn't matter. But Boo sees the technique and then puts his arms back and launches a Kamehameha back at Goku, able to pick up on that technique just by seeing it once.
There's kind of a funny sequence that, at least to me, was funny just before that, where Boo starts like pumping his arms up out at Goku, just firing little ki blast after little ki blast.
I forgot. Yep, I got a note on that too.
And Goku's like, "Oh man, that's Vegeta's technique."
I'm just like, what? Just randomly throwing ki blasts out? Okay.
I mean, admittedly, Vegeta does love to do that, but I just thought it was hilarious that Goku's like, "Oh, that's Vegeta's technique."
Part of me wondered if it was a slight at Vegeta, just like, because it's like the panic ki blast thing that I make fun of people for all the time. It's just, oh, yeah, Vegeta's technique. Oh, it's so funny. But
it was so good.
Either way, couple things that happen is the Kamehameha wave that Boo fires at Goku. Goku actually knocks back at Boo, and then Boo knocks it at Babidi, who has to dodge it because he's not powerful enough to deflect it. And Babidi starts just like talking trash to Boo, telling him he's incompetent. How dare you do that to me? You could have gotten me killed. And we start to see this kind of uneasiness building up with Boo every time Babidi talks to him. And there's a moment where Boo and Goku take a moment to kind of compliment each other on how strong they are. Boo even being like, for a goody two shoes, you're pretty strong. And, it's two warriors more or less recognizing each other's accomplishments. And this is interrupted by Babidi once again yelling at Boo to stop messing around, to which this time Boo barks back his displeasure at the wizard. And so we're starting to see the shackles are starting to come loose from the monster a little bit.
I also really like, because Goku catches wind of this. He notices this is going on, and he even uses this to express, "Boo, you're so much stronger than Babidi. Why do you listen to him? Why do you let him boss you around like that?" And he's kind of planting that little seed in Boo's head that Boo doesn't have to listen to Babidi.
Yeah, and I mean, it's so I love smart Goku. I love tactical Goku. We actually get to see it here, and it's Goku kind of picking up on the clues sitting right out in front of him. And it's at around this time Trunks finally finds the radar and flies off, and Goku's been kind of tracking this the whole time. And now that he knows that Trunks has the radar and is leaving, he doesn't need to fight anymore. And this is where we see Goku power down, and Boo's upset because he's like, "Hey, what are you doing? Like, we're having a good fight here." And he says that in 2 days, fighters even stronger than him and funner than him will arrive. So to give the world a break and just wait for them. And this is where Goku instant transmissions out. Boo really seems to like this idea that there's going to be a new fun fighter showing up for him, but Babidi doesn't. And once again, Babidi starts just berating Boo. He calls him just fat and tells him to stop messing around. And he tells him to track down Goku. And Boo smiles. And this is a wicked smile, by the way. A smile that he doesn't share with Babidi, that he keeps to himself for a moment, before turning and slowly floating over, grabbing Babidi by his neck, holding him up, and then showing him that wicked smile just before punching his head clean off.
This is savage. Like, I just got done talking about the fact that we go from these comedy moments like Gohan pulling out the Z-Sword to some of the most brutal violence that we see in the entire show. Boo punches evaporates this guy's head. It is brutal.
Well, and they don't spare anything, because this goes straight into episode 135, silly looking, the drilling the fusion pose. This is where they show some really graphic shots of Babidi's head just popping in this gross just display of ichor, and we see his headless body's arms twitching as they continue to vainly claw at Boo's just implacable hand, and we see Boo just kind of effortlessly toss just the trash that is his master's body into the air and then blast it into nothingness. It's this really just, I don't know, detailed animated scene that I forgot existed.
I'm so glad that this is in here. And I kind of forgot how much of this they actually show because, like you said, they actually do show Bobity's headless, bloody body twitching in Boo's hands before Blue blasts him away. It's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those scenes I forgot about. I was like, oh my God, this is actually, ooh, this is pretty. I don't know if I'd be comfortable with little kids watching this. God damn.
Yeah, it's shockingly graphic for what we normally get for the violence in Dragon Ball Z, but I love this contrast of the comedy to the savagery that we get here. And we kind of cut back to the lookout where Goku's now instant transmission back to the lookout. He's expressed that he's running short on time, but they also expressed that they felt Babidi get killed by Majin Buu, so they're aware of what's going on, and they're also kind of thinking, maybe this won't be, now that we don't have Babidi directing Buu, maybe the carnage won't be as bad.
Yeah, and to make things even worse, it's at about this point that Goku explains that going Super Saiyan 3 drained all of his energy and that he probably only has an hour left. Well, scratch that. Baba's here now, and he only has about 30 minutes left. So there is no time to teach these boys fusion.
Yeah. We do get to see Buu kind of destroying another town. There's kind of a sequence that I think will be mildly important later where he finds this woman and he's asking, hey, do you think Boo's handsome? And he like changes his face to look more handsome and stuff. But he's got some strange insecurities for this monster that he is. And he just kind of continues killing people as they're like afraid of him.
Yeah, and in the background, or I guess while all this is happening, we see Gohan continuing his training with the Z Sword, and in a really short amount of time, he went from barely being able to lift it to being able to wield it with kind of labored swings, but he's swinging a sword around and in very short order too. But Supreme Kai notices that he's getting kind of tired and offers to maybe take a break and let him catch his breath. But I like this response from Gohan because he says that he knows he may never catch his dad, but he owes it to the world to try. And so he just pushes through and just keeps training. I love it, man. Just trying to live in the shadow of your father is one hell of a thing when it's Goku.
It's wild, especially because Gohan could feel Goku's energy in Super Saiyan 3. And speaking of Goku, with our little time that he has left on the lookout, he gets to training Goten and Trunks as Trunks comes back with the Dragon Radar at this point. And Goten and Trunks are quick to kind of click their heels and ready to serve and protect. And Goku's kind of like, what is this change in demeanor? And I think maybe it's Piccolo who expresses, I'm pretty sure the Super Saiyan 3 transformation that they could feel gave a new level of respect for you, Goku.
Well, and just before this, there's, I think, a really important moment that we kind of alluded to already, where Goten and Krillin are actually sparring on the lookout, which is kind of neat. Krillin's doing something. But while Piccolo and Goku are alone, Piccolo actually presses Goku about whether he could have defeated Buu with Super Saiyan 3. And Goku more or less dodges the question, but he tells Piccolo that Buu isn't his battle and that he shouldn't even be on Earth. He tells Piccolo straight up that the kids are the Earth's next generation of protectors and that they need to be trained up to fill that role, much like when Goku was a kid. And I love that he just put a pin in it.
We kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, and this is a great story for this part of the story. The idea that Goku is dead, and at this point, Vegeta is dead. And so the idea that, these two guys who have been the ones who have basically, I mean, Vegeta's a weird case, but who have basically tried to protect the Earth and everything, they they're no longer around, or they're not going to be around to help. And so the next generation needs to figure out how to save the planet, how to protect Earth and everybody on it. I like this so much in theory. I'm so sad that this does not continue as a through line for this story arc.
No, and I love it too, because it's Goku is almost telling them in the same way that we feel, where it's like, all right, the torch needs to be passed. And Goku's like, yes, the torch needs to be passed. I shouldn't even be here. So, like, let's get this thing rolling, because I got to check out of this so that way you guys can go out and do some cool Dragon Ball stuff. I love it. It's a great way of taking kind of me, the viewer's feelings, and putting it into the story and making it something that's entertaining to watch. And I don't know, it really sets you up for the future of Dragon Ball at this point, or at least it feels that way.
It does feel that way, absolutely. And this kind of takes us in the direction of now Goku starts showing Goten and Trunks this technique that he calls fusion, and he's going to show them the Metamoran fusion dance. And dance is going to be the key word here, as Goku starts showing them the very strange movements that they have to do with their arms and legs, and just a goofy pattern as they say fusion ha, and the kids are like, that looks real dumb.
Yeah. And I mean, Goku, he's also expelled all of his energy, so he's out of breath, he's sweating, he's got his legs and arms making him look like a teacup as he's dancing around. And even Piccolo's looking at this thinking, how ridiculous it is, because he knows he's also going to have to teach this technique once Goku leaves, so he's learning it too.
Which kind of puts us into a spot where Goku asks Piccolo to help demonstrate it, and they're, swinging their arms overhead, kind of like this weird crab walk towards each other, and then have to lean in and touch fingers to perform the dance. And Piccolo is wildly uncomfortable. Everybody else says it looks ridiculous. But the boys at least give their best attempt as they're trying to, again, they're going to be the ones who have to do this to save the world.
Yeah, fusion training is well underway. But while all this is happening, every minute they spend training and waiting, Buu is just continuing his rampage. So they're kind of in a rush here to get everything, I don't know, where it needs to be to get this fusion technique mastered. And that takes us into episode 136, which is bye-bye, everyone. Goku returns to the next world. And I don't know why, but the beginning of this episode cracked me up when Buu decides that he's sleepy, and he lands in a town, turns all the noisy people into clay, then builds himself a very kind of caterpillar-looking house. I don't know what the heck it is, but it's appropriate considering he's kind of like a child. We get to see Buu take a bath, take a poo, brush his teeth, have a 5-minute nap, and then wake up bored and go back out to cause more destruction. I don't know why. It just cracks me up.
I mean, it has a lot of, again, going to the other side now, to Akira Toriyama humor, where Buu creates a toilet and sits on it. You see him grunting to poop, and then it cuts away to his toothpaste dropping out of his toothpaste dispenser. It's very much Toriyama humor. And then there's a moment where Buu, like, this whole thing was Buu wanted to find a place to sleep, and he lies down for all of 5 seconds and says, "Okay, nap done."
Oh, he even squeezed into his pajamas and everything. He was ready for a big nap, but there's a lot of people out there that need to be eaten, and somebody's got to do it.
And he flies off on his way to do so. We kind of cut back to the lookout. The boys are trying this dance, but they kind of get a little bit frustrated. They're like, why do we need to do this? Why don't you just show us how to go Super Saiyan 3, and then we'd be able to beat Buu for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the dance is kind of goofy. The boys aren't really feeling it, and Goku agrees to show them Super Saiyan 3. Piccolo protests for a moment, telling him, like, you're going to use up whatever little time you have left if you do this. And Goku wisely responds, yeah, but like, I don't have much time here anyway. So it's kind of his last ditch effort to make sure the boys stay motivated. So Goku decides to power up and the lookout shakes and everyone talks about, oh my gosh, what's that power level? Because that never happens. But yeah, we see Goku show off the Super Saiyan 3 look. Only for a second though, as just a few seconds in that form is enough to make Goku drop to his knees. And it's at this point Baba arrives to escort Goku back off to Otherworld.
I really like this. I think the reason that I like this is because it is again demonstrating how good Goku is as a teacher, because he sees the boys getting frustrated with the dance. He sees their excitement about Super Saiyan 3. And I think on some level, he understands that they're not going to be able to focus or concentrate on doing the dance without getting this excitement about Super Saiyan 3 out of their system. And so Goku complies. Goku's like, okay, I'll show it to you. Then once you've seen it, you can, you got that out of your system. You can kind of focus on your training again. But this results in basically, as they already knew, Goku's time running out like that.
Yeah, and so all of his friends gather at the lookout, and Goku's kind of saying goodbye to everybody. Chi-Chi's upset that her husband's leaving, and she had just lost her son Gohan, and Goku points out that, well, you still got another one. And
that's a great line.
Speaking of another one, Goten kind of sheepishly approaches Goku and gives him kind of this big bear hug, as this is possibly the only day he'll ever get to spend with his dad. And so it's kind of this tearful, really wholesome moment as we see Goten really be embraced by Goku. And we get to see Goku being a dad, right? It's not something you see very often.
I admittedly teared up at this a little bit. I mean, because Goten he's shy about it, right? Like this is the first day he's met his dad. And Chi-Chi's kind of the one who points it out. Like she's being a good mother in this moment. She kind of reads what's going on in his head, and she says it out loud so that Goku can be like, oh, I can give you a hug. It's a nice touching moment, and it's not the sort of thing that we get super often in Dragon Ball. So I'm always happy to see those little family beats.
Yeah, and it's at this point Goku waves goodbye to all of his friends, telling them that he'll see them again once they're all dead, which cracked me up.
I think Krillin even makes a comment about it, like, leave it to him to end on that sort of note.
But yeah, Goku's escorted off by Baba, and he's escorted to King Yama, where we see that there is a line for miles leading up out the door of dead people who need to be checked into Otherworld.
I really like this, because this is not something that I would have even really thought about. Like, I just like that they add this detail that, yeah, there's going to be millions of souls making their way through the check-in station where King Yama is, and Goku kind of cuts through the line because he's like, oh, you know what? I should check and see if Gohan came through here. And he quickly finds out Gohan did not come through the check-in station, which means he's still alive.
Also, I enjoyed this. We also find out that Deborah had checked through there, and King Yama, recognizing that Deborah is I believe his title was King of Hell or something like that.
He's the Demon King.
Demon King. He's the
Deborah.
Demon King. Yama realizes very quickly that hell is probably too much like Deborah's homeworld. So he sent him to heaven, actually, because it would probably be more painful for him, which I love this detail.
It's even the visual of this is like a great gag where Deborah is just fighting against all of the helpers, and King Yama just chucks a stamp at him that squashes him and presumably has like a symbol for heaven on it or something like that.
I mean, it's just a little detail where it's just like, nah, I think you would thrive in hell. I'm going to send you to heaven, actually, because you'll hate it more. Like
I
it's such a great little detail that it didn't need to be included, right? There, you could have just been done with Deborah, but no, it's like, well, he's checking in there. Let's throw in a quick little gag that once again is fitting of the character. It's in-world humor that works really well.
I love it. There is, I can't remember where it is, if it's in Z or Super or what, but there is a moment that is animated that I can remember where Deborah is shown in heaven. Like he's shown like picking flowers or something ridiculous. So I love that there's a callback to this moment too.
That's such great attention to detail. I love it. But I just had to point that out because it was funny. Outside of this, Goku, in the middle of his celebration over his son being alive, realizes that he can actually sense Gohan's power. And we see him kind of focus for a minute and then put his fingers up to his head in that iconic instant transmission technique mode. And this is where the episode jumps over to 137, which is Gohan located, intensive training in the world of the Kais. And we jump over to Gohan, who's swinging his Z sword around. And this is where Goku pops into existence in front of him and nearly loses his head.
Yeah, damn near gets his head chopped off as he teleports because he has to hone in on somebody's key signature to use instant transmission, right? So hones in on Gohan, transports right next to him, and loses a few strands of hair as Gohan cuts across in the air next to him. And father and son are reunited, and Gohan is very much alive, but he's on the world of the Kais, and Kibito is kind of annoyed that there's more mortals here. Goku's asking them for food because he always wants food. But this is fun. Goku kind of starts to learn, oh, Gohan's training with the Z sword, and this is going to be his way of beating Majin Buu.
I love it too because Kibito's upset that there's a second mortal here. But Goku, within seconds of arriving, says, hey, Gohan, can I see that neat sword you're swinging around? And just starts, throwing it around like it's a heavy sword. And once again, Kibito just fills his pants full of bricks because these mortals are just swinging around this legendary sword like it's nothing.
It's so funny. I mean, this thing is clearly massively heavy, given that Gohan had to go Super Saiyan 2 just to pull it out of the stone. But the funny part here is, I mean, Gohan's been working with it for a bit that he can kind of swing it around, but Goku in his base form just grabs it and starts swinging it around.
It's pretty fun. And I don't know, it just makes me laugh. But while all this is happening, we cut back over to Piccolo, who wakes up some very sleepy boys because there's no time to sleep. They need to continue their training, but they need a refresher on how the fusion dance goes. So Krillin is forced to be Piccolo's dance partner for the refusioning.
I'm glad that they, at the very least, use Krillin for some pretty fun comedic moments here, as especially watching Krillin, who is maybe 4 feet tall, perform the dance with Piccolo, who's like 7 foot tall, is just a funny visual gag.
And it's not, I love this humor. It's not at the expense of any character. It's situational. It plays in line with the characters where Piccolo says that he needs someone to do the dance with, and Krillin looks around and everyone had already gone. It was just him sitting there at that point.
It's real good. I very much enjoy it. In the background here, there's a lot going on with Buu destroying things, but I think we've kind of glossed over some of them. I think there's one here, though, that is important to touch on, as Buu is kind of destroying cities and then finds this boy who is kind of on the outskirts of the city, and Buu kind of flies down like, oh, I'm going to scare the shit out of this kid. And the kid's kind of like, oh, hi there, who are you? And Boo's like, oh, you don't recognize me, or you're not scared of me? And the kid's like, I'm sorry, sir, I'm blind. I can't see you. Am I supposed to recognize you? Are you a pop star or something? And Boo's like, okay, puts a hand on the kid, heals his eyes, and says, all right, open your eyes. And he's cured this kid's blindness for the sake of trying to scare him.
I love it. I'm not going to cure your blindness to be a good person. It's that I'm upset that you're not afraid of me. So I'm going to make sure you can see me so that way you can be afraid. And Boo's kind of like upset and confused when the boy just thanks him afterwards. He can't really understand why the kid's not just running off in fear and terror. And they actually get to like talking and are sitting there just kind of talking to each other for a little bit. And this is where we find out that the boy was off to the market to grab some milk, and he decides to take this gold coin that he was going to buy the milk with and give it to Boo. And Boo decides that gold coins taste bad and that he's just going to fly off and turn somebody into milk and bring it back to the boy. So that way he doesn't have to go and get the milk. Meanwhile, he was singing, "Money is yucky, milk is yummy." So keep that in mind.
This, I want to double back on this, but kind of finishing up this sequence, Boo basically finds a person using his magic, turns them into a carton of milk, and then flies back to this kid and gives him this human milk and says, "Drink it quick before it's warm." So has like cured this kid's blindness, given this kid food. I think at that point, Boo just leaves. Is there anything else that I'm forgetting there?
No, he just goes back off to cause more destruction. You can tell there's not really like a game plan with Boo. He's kind of just going through the motions right now.
So I want to circle back on this whole scene though, because I love this so much. It's strangely simple, and yet it's brilliant writing. Like the idea that Boo is so used to people being afraid of him, and he enjoys that. And like in a way though, he also goes out of his way to kill the people who are afraid of him, right? Like the people who aren't afraid of him, like this boy, he's like, "Well, you were just nice to me. I'm not going to kill you." So like, is that a hint of humanity in Boo, that he doesn't kill people that he kind of has a liking for? Not to mention the fact that he just changed this kid's life. He just cured his blindness with a wave of his hand. It's wild.
Yeah, it's like Boo is he's not really aware of what he's doing or who he is or the miracles he can perform. None of this is really registering to Boo. It's just, oh, well, I show up, I blow up some things, people run from me, and then I kill them. And he's just doing this. And so when something in that plan doesn't go the way it should, when something's different, it's almost like he has to stop and reset everything and put everything to where it needs to be and then keep going, because I mean, there's not a whole lot of bandwidth upstairs. And so he's just working with the process. And so if that process changes, Boo doesn't know what to do. So he has to put everything back to where it should be.
Yeah, it's this strange sort of like, Boo acts like a child, right? And in some ways, I almost feel like we're watching Boo kind of learn and grow. Like Boo, people make fun of Boo for being fat or ugly or a monster, and we see in that one scene with the girl, he tries to get a kiss from the girl and he's trying to make his face look pretty and stuff. So we see this sort of like insecurity about his looks because people keep making fun of his looks. And then in this scene, we see he's usually killing people because they show this fear. And yet this boy who treats him like a person because he has no reason not to, he doesn't kill the boy. Like, this is almost blowing Boo's mind in a weird way, like you said, Dayton, where he almost has to just kind of reset, like he's trying to process this, like it doesn't make sense to him.
It's like, yeah, normally I show up and they run and they're afraid of me. I don't know how to deal with this. How are you not afraid of me, and why aren't you running? Like, I don't know. I guess I'll go buy you milk. I don't know what to do. Like, I'm genuinely confused right now. That's the vibe I got, that he just has the motion that he goes through, and if things don't go the way they do every time, he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, I think that there's a, like, kind of what I was touching on, there is a level of humanity there though too, because getting the boy milk, the boy expressed, "Hey, I needed to get milk, but I couldn't because the stores were on fire." And then Boo goes out of his way to get milk for the boy. So the boy kind of showed kindness to Boo, and Boo showed kindness to the boy in turn. It's just not something like people don't show Boo kindness. Boo is treated like a monster. So I really like this scene for laying the groundwork for the fact that there is humanity and kindness in Boo on some level. People just don't treat him in that way, so he doesn't respond in kind.
Yeah, I do like this scene a lot. It's definitely a fun scene, and it's clever storytelling, right? I'm a big fan of show don't tell, and that's all the scene is. They don't really tell us the exact emotions running through Boo's head, but they give us a micro story in the middle of everything that's happening to kind of punctuate Boo's character and give it maybe a little bit more depth than he's been given pretty much this entire time.
Absolutely. I agree with you, and that's the part that I really, really enjoy about this. And I think we kind of move past that. We get to see Gohan training further, and Goku's kind of like, oh, that sword's really cool. Why don't we test the sword out? Why don't we give you something that you can swing at for target practice?
Yeah, and it's at this point that, this is kind of the childish side of Goku coming out a little bit, like, all right, we're training, let's kick it up a notch sort of thing. And we see Goku reach into the ground and pull up this giant boulder, and we see him he's in his base form, but it looks kind of heavy for Goku. And so he hurls this gigantic thing at Gohan, and Gohan just, anime slices right through it, no problem, child's play. And this is where I thought this was kind of fun, where the Supreme Kai is like, you know what? I'm going to jump in on this too. And we see him lift his hand, and we see this cube start forming out of midair. And suddenly we have the hardest element ever discovered in the known universe summoned by the Supreme Kai and put into Goku's hands.
Yeah, this big black cube. Goku, I mean, similar to the boulder, but even more so, it seems heavy, like it's just dense as Goku is, struggling to hold it up. And then, like a professional baseball player putting Yamcha to shame here, Goku chucks the cube at Gohan. And Gohan, sure enough, two-hand swings the sword directly at the cube. The sword makes contact and snaps.
Yeah, everyone's eyes pretty much jump out of their heads. The Supreme Kai and Kibito especially can't believe what they've just seen. And this is where we see the broken sword lying on the ground, and we see it kind of pulsing as everyone's talking about how this can't be. There's no way this could have happened. It was the sword of legend. And suddenly there's a new voice as this old man clad in the attire of the Kais stands before them, and he explains that he is also a Supreme Kai, but from 15 generations ago.
Yeah, this is wild. There's a part of me that is like, how does he know that it's been 15 generations? I wonder if he has some measure of sentience while he's inside that sword, but regardless, I think that pretty much takes us to the next episode.
Yeah, it does, which is episode 138, Birth of a Merged Super Warrior. His name is Gotenks. Huh. All right. I didn't realize that they named him in the episode title. I have avoided saying his name for a little bit of my notes here, but I won't worry anymore. So yeah, the old Supreme Kai, he continues to explain that long ago he was sealed away by an evil fella. And that's the story. That's the whole thing. That's all we get.
We do find out that he was sealed away because this evil fella feared his power.
Yeah, important detail. Well, that's like a third of the details. So yeah, that is important.
Yeah, which we'll find out why here shortly. But there's another great gag scene of Goku being like, hey, if this guy's so strong, we should test his power. And Goku just gives a wee little ki blast, fires it at the Kai's face. The Kai just gets blasted and knocked over.
I mean, this is more or less the same scene where Krillin throws a rock at Goku's head. Just, they must be immensely powerful. Let's test it. He must be training right now. There must be blah. I mean, I don't know. This gag is funny. It's funny that Krillin did it to Goku, and now Goku did it to who I'm going to refer to as Elder Kai at this point.
Yeah, Elder Kai is probably the easiest way. Yeah, but we also kind of it's then expressed to us, the audience, from multiple people that the Elder Kai is not strong at all, and he's kind of like, that's not where my power lies. That's not why this evil fella feared me. It's because I can unlock other people's power and the potential inside of them.
Yeah, and it took some persuading from Goku, including the offering dirty mags like with a la Master Roshi. But that didn't work, so he offered the squeeze of a tush and threw Bulma under the train, but Goku can't go to Earth, so Gohan's gonna go have to negotiate this. And I mean, it's the dirty gags that you're probably aren't so appropriate nowadays, but were commonplace 20, 30 years ago.
It's interesting to me too, not to dwell on the dirty gag too much, but the original Funimation dub, Goku offered a kiss from a pretty girl.
Oh, that is much more reasonable.
I'm not sure if it's different which version it is in the manga, but yeah, this version is explicitly a boob grab or a butt pinch.
Huh. And Kai is not nearly that old, so yeah, I'm surprised that they took the original content and made it more offensive.
I do like that Gohan explicitly, because Goku basically goes to Gohan and he's like, hey, you can let your girlfriend Videl, he can grab her butt, right? And he's like, no. And then he's like, well, what about Bulma? Maybe you can, ask Bulma if she'll let him do it. And Gohan's like, Dad, that is sexual harassment, right?
I will say, before he asked about Bulma, he looks over at Elder Kai and he goes, you don't mind older girls, do you?
He's like, yeah, as long as she's a looker.
Oh, gosh. Just a little dig at Bulma just made me laugh. But
yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Elder Kai agrees to this situation. And I mean, Goku and Gohan aren't super impressed at first. We've heard and seen the bringing out inner potential thing. But they're going to go for it again. And Elder Kai picks Gohan, since Gohan was the wielder of the Z Sword, to have more of his potential brought out, since the Super Kami Guru, I guess, didn't bring out enough of it. So now we're going to go through the same process again. One thing I like, though, is the scathing comment by Elder Kai before he starts working with Gohan, where he looks back at them before he turns to train Gohan. And he says, I always thought it would have been a Kai who would have released me. And it is just this devastating dig at Kibito and Supreme Kai. I don't know. It didn't feel like he needed to say that, but it was such a just vicious little jab at him. And I don't know, man. I love that line.
It's a good one. I feel like it is kind of falling somewhere in the middle of this spectrum of Kibito and Supreme Kai, where they have the certain view, the Kais have a certain view of mortals, because they're gods. And so they do look down on mortals in some way, shape, or form to varying degrees. And so the Elder Kai was like, well, should have been a god that released me, not a mortal, but I guess I'll release your power because clearly our gods here are incompetent.
I mean, it's, you have god beings who are, I'm guessing, more or probably pretty close to ageless. I'm not going to say ageless because they obviously age. The Elder Kai is an elder. He gets older somehow, but pretty damn near close to ageless. And so I assume that amongst these god beings, tradition is probably heavily important for them. And so breaking the tradition of Kais or gods only being on the Kai world is probably a pretty big no-no. But at the same time, how much smack can Elder Kai talk when he was sealed in a sword by a guy? It's like, come on, bro.
Yeah, I like how much sass he has, despite the fact that he was stuck in this sword for thousands of years. We kind of cut back to the lookout. I mean, Piccolo is just hammering home that training in Goten and Trunks, and they are finally ready to give it a real test run and see if they can properly fuse together.
Yeah, and so we see the boys kind of going through all the steps that we've seen them teach us, the audience, where they power up to the same power level. They swing their arms around as they shuffle back and forth. And this time, though, when they do the real thing, Piccolo notices immediately that they buggered the thing up a little bit. And so as soon as the fusion happens, they touch their fingers. We see the lookout is awash with light, and then suddenly it gives way. And we see a fat little boy where once two boys stood.
There's a lot of comedy in this one, this especially the Buu arc that probably wouldn't fly these days, but they see this fat version of this fused character. It has like purple hair on the sides and back and black spiked up hair in the front, and he starts like moving and running and then runs out of breath, and people are like, is this what we're supposed to expect? And then Piccolo is the one who, like you said, points out, you guys messed up. I think this one specifically was Trunks had his fingers out where he was supposed to be making fists or something, and so they performed the fusion incorrectly, and that's what resulted.
Yeah, and Piccolo is upset with them. He's like, all right, go ahead and change back so that way we can try again. And this is where Gotenks points out, well, how do I change back? And so we don't know if there's any way to cut the fusion short, but it looks like they're just going to have to wait 30 minutes between fusions and then just, try again later. And so they do. After 30 minutes pass, the boys split back to their individual forms. And I believe this is an interesting note here. And I don't know if it's something that ever really carries forward or if there's any logic to this, but they don't remember anything that happened while they were fused.
And
I have a thought. And my thought is they don't remember stuff because they were incorrectly fused.
See, that is an interesting theory. Like, I was actually going to say my theory was that they didn't remember because this is their first time fusing, because you can clearly see there are other instances later down the road where they fuse and they obviously know what happened. But yeah, it could be that too. It could be because of the incorrect fusion they don't remember.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where I don't know, like, why even say that? Why even, like, now I have to think about that. I'm like, all right, well, is this something that you guys remember? What are the rules around it? Because you could just like, okay, yeah, and then never say anything about it and just continue forward, and there would be no questions here. But it's just one of those things that immediately jumped out at me because I'm like, well, every other fusion I've seen that hasn't been a thing. So why is it this one? Was this a mistake? Was this a weird, like, misdubbing or something? What happened here? But I'm just going to go with my own headcanon where because they were incorrectly fused, they don't remember what happened and just go on with my day. I wasn't sure if you knew anything about this, but just one of those little things that really jumped out at me.
No, I don't know that there is any specific like lore that covers that. I forgot about it too, and my brain was that I just thought like, okay, maybe it's because this is their first time fusing, so they're kind of getting used to it. But yeah, it could be that. It could be that it was the incorrect fusion. But I think this is the only time that is ever mentioned. And moving forward, they basically remember everything that happens.
Yeah, I think it's best just to forget that line because it never comes up again, as far as I know. So whatever.
Yeah,
we'll move on. So yep, the boys split apart, and then they go to fuse again, right? And of course, they mess up again. And this time we get a very, very skinny, like almost skeletal form of the portly boy we had earlier. And he's barely able to stand. Like he's wheezing when he's breathing. This is obviously another incorrect fusion.
Yeah. And so they have to wait another 30 minutes so that they can do it again. And they do. They defuse and they perform it one last time. And in this case, third time's the charm, as we get to see the child form with rippling muscles of, well, as the title says, Gotenks.
And I mean, I think the Gotenks fusion is kind of neat. I don't know where the attire comes from. I'm assuming it's something that the Metamorans would have worn. So the just when you use that fusion technique, you get their clothing style.
That is correct, yeah.
But I do like how they kind of blend Goten and Trunks' hair together, where it's black with like the silver highlights to it, or whatever color Trunks'
Kind of
hair is.
Purpley, yeah.
Purpley, yeah. So we get to see like a little bit of their features kind of put together. But the one feature that I don't think anyone was expecting is the arrogance of these two personalities crammed into one body. And right away, he starts talking about how he's already strong enough to beat Buu, and we don't need to train anymore.
I like this. Like it's frustrating in a way from an audience perspective to be like, "Oh, you idiot, what are you doing?" But at the same time, it makes sense. Like we've definitely seen Trunks being very arrogant on multiple occasions. We've seen Goten be arrogant to a much lesser degree, but he's still competitive. Like anytime that he's been, that Trunks says, "Oh, I'm better than you," or whatever, Goten's like, "Nuh-uh." So there is that element there in Goten too. It's just not as on the surface as it is with Trunks.
Yeah, and I guess they may have I just thought about this. They may have kind of alluded towards this being a thing a little bit earlier, where they didn't really respect Goku until he showed his Super Saiyan 3 power level. And it might be the same situation here, because they kind of taunt Piccolo a little bit. And this might bleed into the next episode a little bit, but they kind of taunt Piccolo a little bit. And they even tell him like, "Well, what are you going to do about it? You can't stop us." And so you kind of wonder if Goku wasn't as powerful as he was, would they have responded to his training as well? And are we kind of seeing how they would have actually acted now that they're in the driver's seat, that no one's even close to their power level?
It's interesting, right? Especially because I think if you kind of gauge the power of Goten as a Super Saiyan or Trunks as a Super Saiyan, I would guess they're probably not as strong as Piccolo individually, because in the Cell arc, Piccolo, after fusing with Kami, was stronger than Goku, Vegeta, or Trunks in Super Saiyan form. So I have a feeling that Piccolo is still probably stronger than them individually, but fused, not a chance. They're way stronger than Piccolo.
Yeah, and they even tell Piccolo that to prove them all wrong, he's going to go out and grab Boo's body and bring it back. And that's where this episode ends, which I love. And I'm not going to wait. I'm going straight in episode 139, which is who will defeat Majin Buu. The mightiest of men moves out. And this one kicks off with Buu continuing his rampage that is quickly interrupted by the boisterous arrival of Gotenks, who, I mean, the arrogance is on full display. I'm feeling a lot more Vegeta coming out of this character than anything else.
It almost feels like in the Gotenks form that Trunks' personality is kind of like at the fore of this fusion. And
I can see that too, because there's a lot of moments where Goten looks at Trunks for an opinion, where he kind of like, should we do this? He's kind of looking at Trunks as the decision maker. So I'm not terribly shocked that Trunks' personality is a little bit more in the driver's seat than Goten's is.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree. Not to mention that Trunks' personality is just straight up, if you want to say a stronger personality, Goten's much more willing to kind of like go with the flow sort of deal. He just is happy having fun. But Trunks is a go-getter. Trunks is like, all right, we're going to go do this thing. And in this case, it's trying to beat Buu as Gotenks blasts a hole through Boo's body and then full on goes on the assault, like punches and kicks, throwing Buu into the ground and then trying to blast Buu one more time, fully blasting Blue's entire upper body away. And Gotenks is like, oh man, that was easy, thinking that he's just defeated Buu.
Yeah, and This victory lap is very short as Boo quickly returns and returns the favor with it. We see Boo just lay a supreme beatdown of his own onto Gotenks. And Gotenks is pretty much instantly defeated. There's like really not a fight here. Gotenks is bopped on the head, blasted back. He's impacted into a wall near the ocean where he's unable to move. And it's at this point he's kind of lucky because before the final blow can be struck, we see that the Human Defense Force has arrived and they begin unloading everything they've got. And it's this mayhem that kind of gives them an out, a way to slip away alive without Boo taking advantage of just how beat up he is right now.
Yeah, he's quite lucky. He could have just straight up been murdered or turned into candy or any number of things. However, the beaten and battered Gotenks flies back to the lookout, and I mean, with his tail between his legs, like he goes there and he's like, I guess he was stronger than I thought. And Piccolo gives them a firm talking to and is like yelling at them, like, you guys are our last hope. You could have really ruined this. You need to buckle down, do your training. You've got a whole nother day before you even need to confront Boo. So let's do this correctly and not arrogantly.
So I believe after this, there's a little bit of time that passes by. I think it's just like a couple hours or something like that. But we find out that Boo has wiped out most of mankind, that every military force in the world tried working together with every secret super weapon that they've got, and they couldn't bring Boo down. And humanity's down to their last resort. And they're ready to prepare their ultimate weapon to try and defeat Boo. And they actually reveal the weapon. It's actually some fighter named Mr. Satan, who's the world martial arts champion. And I'm pretty excited to see what he does here.
Yeah, just some fighter. I love that the whole reveal for this is like it really has that same sort of buildup that you described, and it's like showing this lead into, it almost looks like a underground bomb shelter, and then the door opens up to reveal Satan.
I mean, the narrator does a great job too of pitching this. It almost sounds like he's reading like a piece of a doomsday book or something like that, the way he's pitching it. And I mean, it's very serious. He doesn't break character. So it's a lot of fun. We get to see Mr. Satan. He's marched out. He's delivered to Boo's house, and he's left alone so that way he can single-handedly defeat the big monster.
It's pretty fun too, as these guys who are with him are kind of like giving advice or like yelling out at Boo, and then they full on like run away and fly away in their car as fast as they can, which is actually to Mr. Satan's liking, because he's going to approach this in a way that may not look the most heroic, as he kind of like tiptoes his way around the homestead. You see he's got a bag with him that we don't immediately get to see what's in it, but then he finds Boo's not there, and he kind of gets a little bit cocky, and until Boo shows back up, and he is quick to show subservience to Majin Buu.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Satan shits his pants as soon as he hears Boo's voice. And this is where his knees buckle, and whatever spine he had just left the atmosphere. And we see him, I just came here. I've got some chocolate. Do you like chocolate? And he uses a word that Boo doesn't recognize. And he's like, it just means expensive and the tastiest. And so he starts trying to like weasel his way out of being turned into chocolate himself. And it kind of works. Boo accepts the chocolate and starts eating it, but we find out that this chocolate is laced with the most deadly poison known to man. And I mean, I got to say, Boo loves it. This is the best chocolate Boo has ever had.
Yeah. So Mr. Satan's plan A does not seem to be working. So he immediately moves to plan B, or maybe this is plan P, as he pulls out the Game Boy and gives that to Majin Buu to play some video games on.
Yeah, and after showing Boo how to play, Mr. Satan kind of sneaks away, and then this is where we find out that the Game Boy is actually made of C4, and he boom detonates it. And Boo also loves this and is very entertained. So far we're 2 for 2 with Mr. Satan entertaining Boo and just showing him a good time, really.
I love this. I also love that this is like one of the key influencers to many of the Dragon Ball video games, where Mr. Satan has this moveset where he'll give a Game Boy to his enemy that will then explode. It's just a fun little nod to this scene. But there's a moment where Majin Buu will now share candy with Mr. Satan, and he says, "Yeah, I turned people into candy. Here, eat it." And Mr. Satan's like, he puts it in his mouth and then spits it out, because I don't think I would want to eat people candy either.
There's definitely something morally questionable about eating candy made from people. So yeah, I don't blame him. I do like that Boo he's very like matter of fact about it. He's like, "Here, you have candy made from people." And he's like, "Oh, okay." But with this, he offers to make Mr. Satan his servant. So that's way better than being killed. That's a massive upgrade.
I mean, Mr. Satan's fully on board. He does get a picture with Boo where he's basically like standing on top of him. But then, as Boo's servant, he's full on giving Boo a back rub or back wash, whatever you want to call it, in the tub. And I think that pretty much wraps up that episode.
Yeah, that goes right into episode 140. The powering up continues. Super Gotenks is achieved. And the other Kai finished his first portion of his ritual to power up Gohan, and it only took a measly 5 hours. So now they just have to sit down for 20 hours to finish the rest, which is a hilarious amount of time.
Yeah. This is going back to the gags. I mean, it's just like a goofy... I mean, the Elder Kai is like dancing around Gohan for the ritual. This is like exasperating for our two Saiyans in this situation, just having to sit there and do nothing. But hopefully it will result in something, because we're getting to see the after effects of Goten and Trunks flying off, as Goten is getting a full-on spanking for running off as Gotenks.
I do love that. I mean, if anything, you could say that, well, it was Trunks who was in the driver's seat, right? So it's kind of mostly Trunks's personality's fault. But at the same time, Goten's personality would have gone along with it anyway. So come on, Goten's personality, be more assertive.
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting. Like, Chi-Chi's the one fully just delivering a bare butt spanking to Goten. And there's a part of me that likes this for the fact that Chi-Chi expresses, like, the reason she's punishing him is she lost Goku. I mean, Goku arrived for the day, has been dead for 7 years, and then had to go back to the realm of the dead. She believes that she's lost her son, Gohan, and now she almost lost Goten. Like, I don't blame her for being upset here. I get it. Like, you almost lost your entire family in the span of a single day.
Yeah, that's I mean, Chi-Chi passed out earlier when she heard that Gohan died, and I mean, it seems kind of reasonable when your eldest son died. Your husband showed up for a day, which is great, but he's about to leave. And then, I mean, I can only imagine how much of a handful raising a family on your own has been. So, I mean, Chi-Chi's been through it, man. She's been through the ringer.
Absolutely. And so we kind of get to see Piccolo is going to continue training the boys. We do kind of get to see
Piccolo uses his magic powers to heal their boo-boos. I want to point out that he did that.
It's interesting, right? Like, can he heal people, or did he just clean them up, or what? Like, I don't know. It's weird.
It's another one of those ones where I'm like, I'm not going to look into this too much, but it's also one of those things where you said Toriyama had a larger hand in this than he maybe have had in other series, right? I've heard rumors that Toriyama just like forgets stuff. And so there could be spots in here where he just forgets that, oh yeah, that's right, Piccolo can't do that.
Yeah, he didn't have as much meddling from editors at the very least. And sometimes Dragon Ball characters just have powers for the convenience, like Goku reading Krillin's mind on Namek.
Yeah, has that ever happened again since that?
I don't think so.
Hold on. All right, cool. That was a one-use power. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. But yeah, sorry, I had to bring that up because it's just one of those little things where I'm like, are we not going to talk about this? Are we not going to talk about how this guy has healing powers now? When we explicitly had like many conversations where there's like the battle side and then the healing, like helping people side.
Like, I mean, Piccolo has even expressed that he's one of the combat Namekians or the fighting clan, whereas like Dende is the, I forget what it's called, but it's the healing clan effectively from the Namekians. You have those two sides, and I mean, yeah, Piccolo combined with Kami, but no, even Kami was part of the, I think they might have even called it the Dragon Clan, part of the fighting Namekians.
I don't know. I've got questions, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to assume that this is one of those one-off things, and I will never worry about it again. So I'm going to move forward because the boys get back to their training. They power up to Super Saiyan, fuse, and then once again get really cocky and run off disobeying Piccolo's orders.
It's mildly annoying to me that this happens a second time.
The second time is where I'm like, really? Are we doing... I don't mind them being arrogant little boys and running off and then learning their lesson, but this makes me feel like their lesson wasn't learned, and so the first time didn't mean much.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same. The only thing that I'm glad about here is that we don't get a full-on confrontation with Buu again. And I'll be honest, I'm trying to remember because I think that there were multiple times that Gotenks does this in the uncut anime. I'm wondering if they cut anything out as far as Gotenks confronting Buu, because I thought that there were more confrontations.
I think you're right. I think they definitely cut it down a lot is what it feels like. And I sort of get why they left the second time-ish, and it's because it leads into Mr. Satan, because where he picks up is important, and there's kind of a weird transition scene between the boys showing up, yelling something at Buu, Buu yelling back, and then Mr. Satan comforting Buu and continuing to do something. So maybe they felt it was necessary.
Probably. I mean, it is kind of cool to get to see Super Saiyan Gotenks too, which is a nice little thing, and even just there's like the brief scene, almost like a Sonic the Hedgehog scene of Gotenks like flying around the Earth multiple times. Like, it's cool to see these little feats of power. But yeah, I don't know. It feels a little bit excessive, but the transition probably is one of the reasons that they kept it in. And the boys kind of get admonished one more time, back on the lookout by Piccolo.
Yeah, and they deserve it. But the scene that this leads into is Hercule's actually preparing dinner and hiding dynamite for his pink boss, employer. I don't know the what this relationship
Master,
is.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's slaving away while his pink friend is off doing human extinction, I guess. I don't know how else to describe it. But Buu comes back early. And this time, though, he has this battered and rough-looking puppy in his hands. And he asks Mr. Satan why it won't run away afraid of him. And this is where Hercule points out that it can't run because he hurt his legs. And so Buu fixes this dog's leg so he can run away in fear, much like he cured the blind kid's blindness so that way he could see him and then run away in fear. So there's, once again, we're seeing this happen again.
These story beats are tying in together. We're seeing the growth of the character, Majin Buu. And as Buu heals this dog, the dog, I mean, just has gratitude to Buu. I mean, very similar to the boy who his blindness was healed by Buu. They have no reason to fear Buu. The dog doesn't know any better. The dog doesn't realize that Buu is a a monster killing humanity. He just realizes, oh, I was hurt, now I'm not because of this person.
Yeah, and I mean, Boo is once again, he's kind of not sure what to do immediately because he's not used to getting, I guess in this case, absolute affection, right? The blanket was nice to him. The dog showing just overwhelming gratification. And Hercule even offers like, "Hey, I'll go grab some dog food." Because Boo's trying to like feed the dog chocolate, which you shouldn't do. And Hercule's like, "Yeah, I'll just go grab the dog food, and so that way we can feed him." And so Hercule drives off, and there's a moment where that dynamite that he was considered detonating it to try and kill Boo at this point. But he sees Boo genuinely being happy with the dog, and he's holding the dog in his hand and laughing. And he stops himself and he thinks, well, at the very least, I can't kill the dog. And so he gets back on his little bike and he drives off and he comes back with the food. And it's at this point we're starting to see this kind of change of character with Boo, where he's not just killing everything around him. He's actually kind of experiencing something showing gratitude and kindness towards him.
I really like this. We kind of touched on the fact that the scene with the blind kid shows this level of humanity in Boo. This continues to do so, but not only for Boo in this case, because Boo is now, shown as playing with this dog, but Mr. Satan, like you said, Dayton, drives away, giving him some safe space, having planted the dynamite in Boo's house that clearly would have blown up the entire house along with Boo and the dog outside of it. And despite the fact that Mr. Satan could have blown it up to potentially, in his mind, defeat Boo, he didn't do it because he saw Boo showing humanity, and because he kind of gives the excuse that it's the dog. But I think it's more than just the dog. But I like that Mr. Satan is not only a person who wouldn't kill a dog like that, but also he doesn't kill Boo because of the humanity that he shows.
Yeah, it's kind of the rationalization, right? Where it's just like, you look at this monster and you're like, you've killed so many people. You're such a heartless killing machine. I'm only alive because I'm basically your slave. And for some reason, I can't pull this trigger. I can't detonate it. It's got to be the dog. It's got to be, I can't kill that dog. That's why I'm not pressing the button. It's coming to terms with the situation at this point.
I like this a lot. And Mr. Satan kind of goes, gets the dog food, and then he comes back, they feed the dog, and Mr. Satan kind of like comes up with an idea. I think Boo says, "Oh, I'm going to go kill more people." And Mr. Satan's just like, "Hey, how about you don't?"
Yeah, and of course Boo is caught off guard, like, what do you mean I shouldn't? And Hercule asks him, like, well, why are you killing all these people? And Boo just comes out and says that, well, it's because what Bibbidi and Bobbidi told me to do, so it's what I do. And Boo offers to stop because he likes Mr. Satan. He says, if you don't like it, I will stop. And so this is that, like you were talking about, this is that kind of humanity, that human element coming into play here, where Boo at least understands enough where he's like, hey, I like this person and it'll make him unhappy if I go and kill people, so I'll stop killing people.
Yeah, it's in a lot of ways it's a child's mentality, right? Like, you don't think about younger children don't have empathy. They're not thinking about how their actions are impacting other people. And that's, in a lot of ways, that's kind of like Boo here. Like, Boo is not thinking about how his actions in destroying these cities and turning people into candy and eating them is impacting them. But when Mr. Satan expresses, hey, I don't like that you're doing that, it makes me not feel good, Boo, having that empathy expressed to him, says, oh, if it makes you feel bad, then I'll stop. Like, it's very simple, very straightforward. It's the mind of a child.
Yeah, it's the mind of a child, and it's also the mind of a child who, throughout his entire existence, has never known any sort of freedom, has never really been offered the opportunity to ever make a decision. So you're talking about a child who's never had to really think about things before. He's been told everything and what to do at every moment in his life. And so he's kind of grappling with having free thought and the ability to make free decisions on his own right now. And we're seeing that come forward where he's like, you know what? I'm not going to do what Bibbidi and Bobbidi told me to do. I'm going to do something different because it makes you feel good. And it is some character growth, big character growth from a character who's never been allowed to grow.
That's a great point too. Yeah, that he had no, or felt like he had no agency prior to this because of Bibbidi and Bobbidi. And yeah, he's kind of trying to figure out what that looks like. And right now, what that looks like is eating food that Mr. Satan cooks and playing with this dog that seems to really enjoy Majin Buu. But that is...
Mr. Satan even shows Buu how to play fetch with the doggo. So they just have a ball and they're just... Boo's throwing the ball and just giggling, and every time the dog brings it back, he laughs again and throws the ball. Like it's kind of a wholesome scene.
And that wholesome scene is cut short by what is possibly the most horrific scene in all of Dragon Ball, as this dog is chasing after the ball that Buu has just thrown. All three of them seeming to just be having a good time. And the dog is shot down by this man with a sniper rifle we see, who is kind of expressing, got the dog, now you're next, Buu.
Yeah, and Buu doesn't say anything. The episode starts coming to an end with Boo's eyes just kind of wide open as a shadow starts being cast over his face as he just grapples with the situation in front of him. And it's this devastating, it's a perfect endpoint, by the way, because it's such a huge cliffhanger, because we don't know what Boo's going to do to respond to this. And this is probably one of two or three things in the current universe that have ever made Buu happy. And he watched one of them just die right in front of him. And one thing I want to bring up here is I like this scene, even though I hate this scene. And I like it for a couple reasons. One is it kind of shows the, like, we've seen the evil in Buu, but now we've seen the good come out. And we've seen the good in humanity. And this is a good way to show the evil coming out. Kind of the trading of roles where Buu was the bad guy. And then he kind of became the good guy. And then humanity became the bad guy. So there's kind of some poetic storytelling happening here.
Yeah, I very much agree. That's a great observation. I also really like that this is Mr. Satan being the hero, but not in the way that other people perceive him as being the hero. He's not in a position to beat Buu, to kill Buu, and he knows that. He realizes that he's at a deficiency here in terms of power or fighting skill. And so he's trying underhanded tactics at first, but now he just thought, why don't I just ask Buu to stop killing people? And it worked. Like he effectively has saved humanity by asking Buu not to kill people. So basically just diplomatic means, I guess, if you want to put it that way. But now, like you said, Dayton, the kind of evil side of humanity might be here to ruin that as this dog is taken from Majin Buu.
Yeah, and I mean, it's hard to talk about this scene because it's part of me just wants to go, who the hell kills a dog? Like, that's obviously the bad guy. That's the bad guy of the Majin Buu whole of all of everything. It's the worst bad guy in all of Dragon Ball is that MFer right there. Do I remember correctly, when we did our top 3 characters who deserve coal, were you the one who brought this guy up? Because I thought about this guy and I was like, oh, maybe he should have been on the list. So I definitely thought about it, but we were in the middle of recording the Boo stuff, and that was coming up soon. So I didn't want to talk about it right then. But yes, that was a high consideration for my list of coal. But I despise the dog killing MFer who probably didn't get a worse enough fate.
He's a son of a bitch, man. Like, why even kill the dog? You're there to kill Boo. Why the hell would you kill the dog in the first place? Why not just shoot Boo?
I mean, that's something I've had to try and rationalize, is like, maybe this guy lost his family to Boo and all this other stuff, and he's out there, he's like, I'm gonna make Boo suffer the same way that I suffered. That's the only thing I can think of.
See, that I like that as a headcanon, but they don't express that, right? The narrative doesn't express that. And we don't really kind of get this, like, his personality doesn't give you that impression either. Like, he feels more
cocky.
Yeah, like sadistic almost. Like, he doesn't seem distraught over loss. He just seems ecstatic that he gets to cause people pain.
Yeah, it's almost like, the world's in such shambles that the government gave him a license to kill, and he's gonna use that license all the way to the bank, sort of thing. That's definitely the more character vibe I got. But I mean, who kills a dog?
Some sick motherfucker, man. And I think that's the point. Like, I kind of like your headcanon idea that you could see somebody who is, like, distraught over the loss of their family. I like that from a writing perspective of, like, okay, that makes sense. But I think this way of this guy just being a sadistic asshole is a better narrative tool in this case, because I think the writers want the audience to hate this guy and to feel bad for Majin Buu in this case. I think that's important going forward, that we realize, oh, Buu isn't all bad. Like, there are good elements to Buu, and there are bad elements to humanity, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think, I mean, for me, I would feel bad for Buu either way, but hating the person who did it is, I don't know. That's a powerful storytelling tool, so you're probably right. I think if you can just outright hate the person who did it and just show this terrible person, and now you're kind of left with this thought of, like, all right, like, how bad can I feel for Boo, though? Because he's killed millions of people. Like, this guy is terrible. But that guy shot a dog. And I think I hate him more right now.
And that's the thing. Like, I think your idea would, like, so the pendulum kind of swings one way hard about, okay, Majin Buu is evil. He's killing all these people. He's doing these bad things. He's the bad guy. We need to kill him or get rid of him. If we felt some sympathy or empathy for the dog shooter, I think the pendulum would maybe just swing, like, a little bit more towards neutral. But I like the idea of the pendulum swinging all the way the other direction, of being like, no, fuck that dog killer. Like, he's the evil guy in this situation, and we still, in that way, have more sympathy for Majin Buu.
I think I like that. I think you're right. I think swinging the pendulum just that hard to the other direction. I mean, it's the whirlwind of emotions, right? Where we hate Boo, he's evil, he's doing bad things, and then it kind of calms down a little bit, and we get to see, kind of like you're saying, this human side of Boo, this emotional, empathetic part of Boo, and then just in the middle of this, like, transition from being a bad guy to maybe a not so bad guy, something terrible just befalls him, and things go off the rails. It's a great storytelling technique. I love it. I hate it, but I love it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's rough, man. And this is, to be clear, this is the last episode that we're going to cover for this episode of Instant Transmission. So we've got this chunk. I have mixed feelings about this chunk. What did you feel about this chunk of episodes, Dayton?
Yeah, I don't know. When I was kind of preparing my notes, it was tough for me because I feel like there are a lot of good beats in here, but as far as a whole cohesive story, like this big chunk, I honestly feel like not a whole lot happens. I feel like we go from everyone's kind of licking their wounds from Boo beating the snot out of them to like they're all training, but like I don't know. It's been a lot of episodes of just kind of getting around to training. There's a lot of good fusion training content, but then I feel like there's also a lot of time that's kind of wasted on running around and kind of doing less important things. there's a lot of time spent on like, oh, well, Gohan's getting another power up. Up, the Supreme or the Elder Kai's walking around him. He's still walking around him. Up, Goku took a nap. He's hungry. He took a nap again. There's a lot of just stuff that kind of pads this out to where, I don't know, should it have been the 9 or 10 episodes we did? I don't think so. I think this could have been shrunk down to about 6 episodes is kind of my takeaway.
I very much agree with you. I think you brought it up before we started recording, and I didn't really realize it until you said something about it, but I was like, man, that was like 9 episodes. And there really wasn't a lot that happened.
There wasn't a serious fight in 9 episodes. So keep that in mind. The Super Saiyan 3 versus Majin Buu wasn't really a serious fight. I mean, it was also kind of the B team or the filler team animation quality, so it wasn't that great looking of a fight either. As far as main story events, the Elder Kai is revealed, which I'm debating how important that actually is, because we went from Gohan using the Z Sword to power up to Gohan using the guy sealed inside the Z Sword to power up. So it's kind of 2 different ways to end up at the exact same location.
I get what you mean. The only reason I like that is because, and I admittedly I don't like the way that Gohan gets his power up from the Elder Kai, but I like the subversion of the Arthurian legend of the sword being important to there's just an old guy sealed in the sword. That has like Akira Toriyama comedy written all over it.
That is pretty. I mean, I would have loved it if he wielded the sword, got powered up, and then broke it, and then it was just like, actually, the sword is just heavy. Like you were, I don't know, just something different. There's a lot of time that's spent on that gag, I feel.
I agree with you very much there. Man, there's like I love the Super Saiyan 3 moment. We didn't dwell on it too much. I did want to ask you, kind of going back to that briefly, how do you feel? So a lot of people don't like the reveal of Super Saiyan 3 because it's not earned on screen, like it's earned off screen. What are your thoughts about that one, Dayton?
I don't care because I don't really like Super Saiyan 3 that much. So regardless of how you reveal it, I don't really care. Original Super Saiyan reveal was badass. Super Saiyan 2, while not the most interesting form, the way Gohan achieves it is freaking cool as hell. Super Saiyan 3 is kind of not really my favorite looking. I think it's a little goofy looking. And then Goku just kind of revealing it out of the blue. It's whatever. It's just the next step in Super Saiyan at this point. I'm really looking for something different than just another Super Saiyan. So I'm not bothered one way or the other with Super Saiyan 3. And that's partially because too, that at this point, we've got multiple kind of methods of powering up that are happening too. So it's possible that Super Saiyan 3 isn't really that important. So who cares if the reveal is important? Because we've got fusion that might be the big thing going forward. Or we've got Gohan's Kai training that might be the big thing going forward. I mean, I'm kind of ignoring how everything actually turns out, but it's one of those things where if they had actually cashed in on one of the other avenues of powering up or becoming stronger, then I think the Super Saiyan 3 reveal doesn't even matter because we're going a different route now.
Yeah. I think I agree with most of what you had to say there. I still like the Super Saiyan 3 reveal. I think for me, one of the things that I am liking it to, so Dragon Ball has a problem with transformations and techniques where they kind of fall into they can kind of fall into a similar bucket. So in a lot of other, let's say shonen anime, for instance, if you say like Yu Hakusho or something like that, they'll use techniques, like new techniques that the characters learn off screen to surprise the audience. And I think that that's kind of what they did with Super Saiyan 3, the transformation, almost treating it more like a technique in that way, where you can't, without having things happen off screen, you can't surprise the audience with this reveal in the middle of a fight. And so I'm okay with them doing that with a transformation with Super Saiyan 3 instead of, like, kind of in lieu of a technique. But I can also understand why people are like, oh, Super Saiyan 3 is meh, because there's not this cool story beat that it's attached to. There's not this emotional weight that, you get from Goku's Super Saiyan transformation on Namek or Gohan's Super Saiyan 2 transformation against Cell. So I can also understand that beat behind it.
See, I don't know if I agree with the you can't surprise the audience if you do stuff off screen, because Goku learned the Kamehameha wave on screen and then throughout original Dragon Ball proceeded to creatively use it several times, including using it to ride around with his feet and blast him off like a rocket. And so I disagree with that idea, because we've seen techniques that we're aware of be used creatively and catch us off guard. Think the instant transmission Kamehameha. So I like it when you show me the tools and then surprise me with how they're used. I think that's better storytelling rather than, well, you didn't think about this technique that you would have not known about.
That's fair. That's a fair point. I think that you can do both. I could see, I guess, an argument for preferring to know all of the tools and know kind of all the rules that are in play, because then the writer has to work harder in that case to really surprise the audience, and the audience doesn't feel cheated or blindsided, I guess. So I could see that argument.
Yeah, so I don't know. There haven't been too many moments where, at least with Goku, we saw, I don't want to say something happened off screen because he learned instant transmission off screen, but
off screen
throughout original Dragon Ball, they really didn't do that. And then in DBZ, they started doing it a little bit more, like with Vegeta earning Super Saiyan off screen, but at the same time, we had already seen Super Saiyan get earned, so him earning it off screen wasn't as big of a deal, even though I think it was really lame. You can quote me on that. I don't know. It's fine. It's whatever. I'm not a huge fan of the form anyway, so they can have it. I want to see something different than just a different hair color, or longer hair or something anyway.
That's honestly my biggest problem with the Super Saiyan transformations in general. Like, they're just bland. Like, I'm totally cool with original Super Saiyan. It's iconic. It was a significant change in terms of, like, aura, the color of his hair looked different. Okay, I'm okay with that. I don't like the direction that they went with them, though, where Super Saiyan 2 barely looks different. Super Saiyan 3's, like, longer hair. And even the Super Saiyan forms beyond that start to just be palette swaps to a point.
Yeah. So, I mean, I will agree with you. This form is at least a little bit more interesting than maybe some of the other forms that come down the line or we've had previous. But yeah, the reveal is more or less fine. It's not the best. I definitely think they could have done it better. I also don't know. I don't know. I guess I have a lot of thoughts about that, but it's not really Goku's story at this point. But I guess you could say you could view it as a preview of what the younger Saiyans could accomplish, right? Like, I'm revealing it now and I'm revealing it early because I'm kind of showing you where the next generation of heroes is going to go, where they'll eventually end up and what they'll eventually get past. So I don't necessarily mind it in that sense if you frame it that way.
I think you're touching on an important point, because I think that it almost represents another element that Goku is kind of passing on in a teacher-student sort of element. Like, I think the moment where the kids, Goten and Trunks, say, oh, we want to see Super Saiyan 3, and Goku shows it to them, I think that's going to be important moving forward. Like we already know the story, so we know how this turns out. But I think that that's kind of an important teaching moment from Goku to the boys.
Yeah, and for me, as I'm rewatching through this, I'm trying to focus on the emotion that I'm feeling right now. Where's the story taking me? I'm trying to disregard what happens in the future a little bit because I want to know where I expect the story to go without any of that future knowledge, and then kind of judge it from there, and then maybe think back on like, all right, did I miss something that made me think it was going to go in a different direction, or was there something that they alluded to earlier that I missed that I should have known it was going to go in this direction or something like that? I don't know. I'm trying to keep an open mind and just experience it as it comes because if you think about the future knowledge too much, you're going to be disappointed in everything. So you got to just kind of get rid of that and just enjoy the moment.
I mean, we kind of talked about it last time. Kind of despite the what I would consider bad pacing in this chunk of episodes, I still really like the narrative through line here that they are building up, because all of it is leading to either Gohan or Goten and Trunks as Gotenks are going to finish their training, their power-ups, and they're going to go fight Buu, and they're going to, they're going to win potentially is the idea. But yeah, I'm trying to experience it that way too without thinking too much about the future knowledge, because it's a little bit frustrating otherwise.
But if they did things differently down the line, the buildup for all of this is incredible. Like, honestly, the way that they're putting all the pieces in place, the way that they got Vegeta off scene, they got Goku to take that role of the master for a little bit and then part ways. Even Piccolo's getting in there and doing some training too, which is freaking awesome. Like, I love that everyone's kind of chipping in their own way and kind of moving in the direction that you would like the story to go if you want the next generation of fighters to start fulfilling that protector role.
I mean, we didn't even touch on this, the fact that I also really like that Piccolo is being the kind of teacher or mentor here for Goten and Trunks, because he's the one who taught Gohan how to fight when he was a child. Gohan was 4 or 5 years old, and Goten and Trunks here are, 7 and 8 years old. And so it's Piccolo just putting on an old hat and being that mentor for the kids one more time.
And if, hypothetically, if Vegeta and Goku stay out of Dragon Ball at this point, like they're both dead, they don't come back, wouldn't it be Piccolo's job to try to kind of train the kids going forward? Because Gohan doesn't really stick with the game. And even if Goku and Vegeta don't come back or whatever, I don't think Gohan sticks with the game. It's not in his blood. He doesn't want to fight all the time. He's not going to train Goten and Trunks. I think the kids are already beyond what Roshi could even offer. So a lot of their training, it has to be Piccolo. It can't be anybody else.
I can't think of anybody else, because kind of what we talked about, Piccolo is probably the only one stronger than them, honestly, and he's an experienced martial artist, he's an experienced teacher. I think he's really the only one who could do it.
Isn't that kind of a wild thought that Piccolo is the de facto master for the strongest Earth fighters?
Yeah, this alien Namekian is the one who is gonna bring up the Earth's fighters, but then I guess it's Saiyans that he's training too, so none of them are humans per se. I guess they're half human.
Oh shoot, that's good. That's good. Well, I think that wraps it up for me. Was there anything else you wanted to discuss?
No, I think we've talked it pretty thoroughly. Yeah, I think these episodes were fine. I wish they would have tightened it up a little bit, but yeah, otherwise I think that's probably going to be it for this episode of Instant Transmission, where we discuss everything Dragon Ball. This has been your host, Todd.
And Dayton.
Don't forget, we're on Patreon and Twitter. If you want to help us make better content, and Kami knows we need it, you can find us at patreon.com/ITDBpodcast and over on Twitter at x.com/ITDBpodcast.
Yeah, X gonna give it to you. Let's go.
So be sure to join us next time as we fuse our way into part 1 of the Evil Buu arc. While it looked like Mr. Satan may have helped tame the beast that is Majin Buu, we may be about to see a new level of rage unleashed from the creature at the loss of his puppy. Can Mr. Satan calm Buu's rage before the world gets destroyed? Will Piccolo be able to firmly plant his humility boot in Gotenks's buns? Or is sexual harassment going to be what saves humanity? Find out next time. And to all our fellow Dragon Ball fans, stay safe out there, and remember to keep rocking the dragon.
I like the way you handle those boys. I like the way you handle them boys.